6 hours, 52 minutes, and 15 seconds. That's how long it took FasCat coach Elliott Barring to race 100 miles with 11,000 feet of climbing of the brutal Leadville 100 mountain bike course. At altitude, started at 10,000 feet, and finished 30th overall in one of the hardest mountain bike races in the world. And yes, that's well under the 9-hour cutoff for the highly coveted belt buckle, the kind that most riders strive for. So today we are going to break down Elliott's power data from the Leadville file, because how do you hold power like this for 7 hours straight at 10,000 feet, all the while balancing a full-time job coaching athletes? We're going to get into climb by climb. We'll look at his watts per kilo, the key metrics he was hitting before the race and training. Elliott's also going to join us here in a little bit and share his fueling strategy and how he managed to prepare for one of the toughest mountain bike races in the world, all the while without really putting his life on hold, because remember, he still had a full-time job. Right off the bat, we're going to get into the goods in terms of power data trends. He did 239 watts X power for, as we mentioned, 6 hours, 52 minutes. OTS of 517, which puts him in epic territory, signaling the need for multiple days off. His peak 20-minute power was 300 watts, which occurred up the first climb, St. Kevin's. It started at mile 6. This is also where he hit a peak 5 minutes power output of 324 watts. But as you'll see when we talk with him, that was very much his decision to keep it in check there. That's right about his threshold. Elliott's altitude adjusted FTP is 325 watts in Leadville at 10,000 feet versus 350 watts here in Boulder at 5,430 feet. The altitude adjustment is a 7.1% reduction, and that's supported by Bassett et al. Check out the chart. Total watts per kilogram for the race is 3.7 watts per kilogram. It's beast mode. So for all of you that want to get the coveted 4 watt per kilogram for an hour, Elliott's almost there for a whole 7. Beyond this massive achievement, Coach Elliott spent the better part of the past 2 years training for Leadville. He's going to tell you about it here in a second. And his training for the past 7 months culminated in achieving a peak level of 90, and he had a streak of 171 days. That's why we say consistency is king. He averaged about 16 hours of training per week, and then that increased to about 18 hours per week as he got closer and closer to the race. Again, all the while holding down a full-time job coaching athletes. He did heat training per the protocol we described in this video here, but no, he did not use drop bars or full suspension, although I think he wore a skin suit. Let's break down the 4 major climbs of the race. At mile 6, Elliott did 304 watts up the first climb, St. Kevin's. That was 4.7 watts per kilogram for 23 minutes. Then again at mile 14, Elliott did 280 watts, 4.3 watts per kilogram, up the Sugarloaf outbound in 24:57. And then at mile 44, Elliott climbed the big dog, the Columbine, 261 watts at that elusive 4 watt per kilogram target for a lot of you, and it took him 67 minutes. Woo! From Twin Lakes to the power line, Elliott rolled the 18-mile section with an X power of 236 watts, 3.6 watts per kilogram. That took him just under 69 minutes. And then at mile 80.5, up the power line climb, Elliott hung tough 230 watts, 3.5 watts per kilogram in 33 minutes. I think power line is a good measurement of durability compared to the power he achieved up St. Kevin's at the beginning of the race. So it's essentially a differential of 74 watts, 304 at the beginning versus 230 at the end. Everybody gets tired. And if anyone is out there and they have data to share from other riders where they share their power differentials, give us a shout out to those in the comments. We'll talk about this with Elliott, but in terms of if he would want to go back next year and do a 6.5 time, beat his time, we would look at how to improve his durability. Elliott also belted out 5,230 kilojoules over the day, consumed 9 gels, 270 grams of carbohydrate from gels, and then 330 grams of carbohydrate from liquid. We'll come back to Elliott's fueling here in a minute. One key piece of data as it relates to pacing and not going out too hard, a la the tortoise and the hare analogy that we talked about. Elliott limited his peak 5-minute power at the beginning of the race to 324 watts, which is right smack dab 100% of his FTP. And that occurred at the beginning. He said he was in the third group. feeling amazing. There was really no need to go harder because the second group was already up the road. He was comfortably in the draft. So he made a strategical decision of it's in a great group, already going pretty hard. It's fast moving.
Well,
Welcome, Elliot. How are you?
hey Frank, pretty good. A little tired, less than 24 hours post Leadville, but feeling pretty good, I think, considering.
You look really good for doing close to 525 OTS and 100 miles of mountain bike racing.
Yeah, I think, especially after the race and today, I've done a pretty good job of getting some good food, just chilling out, getting some good sleep last night, and that's definitely helped a lot. I even got to go watch a couple athletes race or finish the stage at Breck Epic today, so I got a little time outside. Haven't ridden, but yeah, just walked around and yeah, it's been nice.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on such an incredible race, 30th place. That's awesome. You really walked the walk for all the athletes you coach. I was wondering if we could just start by just getting your take. Like, how was the race in your own words? Give us the play-by-play that we wouldn't see from your data.
Yeah, overall, I'm happy with the race. I accomplished my goal, which was go below 7 hours. This was my first Leadville, so despite having done as much prep and data analytics and everything that I have, there's still a little bit of a roll of the dice when you line up. But overall, happy. The race went pretty well, not without issue. I had kind of some hydration, fueling issues that kind of left me a little hampered in the second half of the race, but overall started off on a really good foot, felt really comfortable, was climbing well, found some good groups to ride in, no issues with the bike, and overall like a pretty clean day. So I think given the conditions as well, which were not very fast, pretty significant headwind, crosswind on the way back in, and some really dry and loose conditions combined with maybe a little poor air quality in the morning due to, I think, some wildfire smoke.
Yeah.
Overall, yeah, like really happy. I think I can be content with that ride, but there's also some potential room for improvement if I want to come back.
There you go. I won't even put you on the spot and ask you about that. But I think there's racing Leadville and then there's going sub 7 hours. And one of the things I think all the listeners and viewers want to know is, what does it take from like a life priority? What kind of focus does it take from the last 7 months that you gave this bike race?
It was definitely the primary focus, and I definitely built my entire season around it. For those people that maybe don't know, I was supposed to race last year and I got sick and couldn't start. So
Mhm.
I was thinking about the 2025 Leadville last year on Leadville Day. I was
Yeah.
already thinking about that. So when I built my season this year, I kind of prioritized it around that. And I had a significant life change also in that I moved to Colorado in the fall. So that helped a lot, being, increasing the acclimation by 5,000 feet. I spent a lot of time this winter not on my bike. However, I was still training ultimately. I was doing a lot of ski touring, a lot of skimo racing, that sort of thing. So really spending a lot of time at high altitude and just kind of building that general aerobic endurance and engine. And then come March, April, when weather started to improve a little bit, really started hitting it a lot more. And come June, July, it was almost entirely Leadville focused with planning out the heat acclimation blocks and getting power pacing dialed, spending time at altitude in a much higher altitude. So yeah, it was 365 days of prep, and that really helps a lot, I think, to just make it really even, very drawn out, no rushing, and I feel pretty happy with the prep that I put together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I think you were saying before we hit the record button, you were doing approximately 16 hours of training on a per week basis for maybe like the last 180 days or so.
Yeah. And that definitely increased in, I would say, the last like three months. I zoomed in a little bit more. And I think the last like 90 days was about 18 hours. So
Yeah.
increasing that up a little bit as weather got better, that sort of thing. But yeah, it overall, like I felt very prepared going into the
Yeah.
race.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the adversity you faced during the race and what you did to overcome it?
Yeah. So m- I'll back up. So one of my big pieces of advice to a lot of my athletes before the race was it's cold at the start. It was
Mm.
low 40 degrees. A lot of us now use high carb fueling through fluid, and it's very easy to fall behind because you're not getting those kind of thirst cues to drink. So I burned it into my head of, hey, you still need to stay on top of your fueling. And maybe too much so. I think I overhydrated ultimately in the first 2 to 2.5 hours. So that caused some issues for me kind of in the middle third of the race that I kind of identified what was going on. And I very consciously made the decision to dial back on my hydration significantly going up the Columbine climb. However, I was able to stay on top of my calories through kind of some additional gel intake. But that kind of helps me to normalize things a little bit. It took a while. I definitely kind of took a hit from that. And I was able to kind of get back on board, but I was kind of just stuck in cruise control for the rest of the race. It was kind of difficult for me to keep the power up after that. Maybe it being a little bit of dehydration, probably some additional underfueling as well. So that was not perfect, but like you said, it's not always common for athletes to absolutely nail it on their first Leadville. And then like zooming out a little bit more, I got pretty sick. I had a sinus infection 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
The last, it was the week before my taper. So it
Mm.
was the last week of my planned kind of not overload, but like the last big week of training.
Yeah.
And kind of took me out for about a week. I was still riding, but just zone one and zone two, super easy stuff. And that was a bit of a curveball because I was like, all right, well, I'm 3 weeks out from Leadville and my taper technically starts next week. So what do we do
Yeah.
now? So
Yeah.
I flipped it a little bit and I had almost like a 1 week off, 1 week on, 1 week off kind of taper. So that 2 weeks before the race, I revved it up a little bit more and I had, I think it was like 18 and a half hours on the bike that week with some good intensity to kind of stay relatively fit and not result in a 3 week long taper. So yeah, it didn't go perfect, but I think overall controlled and managed those setbacks well.
Nice work. If an athlete came to you wanting to get their buckle or do better next year than they did this year, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them after doing it yourself?
I think planning your year around it, honestly. If you're really serious, I think that's what it takes. And there's when you build your annual training plan out, it allows you the flexibility to absorb a week of sickness and things like that, or a vacation. And it allows you to be really, really focused and specific with your prep as well. And dive into like, hey, how did this year go for you? What were the wins? Where were the places where we could improve? And yeah, if we want to be 10% better next year, when you divvy that up over the duration of 365 days, it's a really manageable task rather than coming to a coach in May saying, I'm doing Leadville and I want to take an hour off my time. At that point,
Yeah.
it gets tricky.
Yeah. That's tough. The life balance has got to, something's got to give.
Yeah.
I really like that you said that, the 365 approach. I would say for any listeners out there that are inspired about Leadville and they want to do it and they're going to do it for the first time, here's the thing. I would venture to guess Elliot, maybe you might know better. I'd say 60% of the entrants that took the start yesterday made Leadville their number one priority. They had a coach, they had a plan. Their life revolved around the race.
If I include myself, I think there were 10 athletes that I had racing, and 6 or 7 of them, Leadville was their main event for this year.
Yeah. 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 I mean, also like the kind of the point I'm trying to make is if you're entering Leadville, all the people you want to beat are and also are going to need to compete with, they are 100% training year round and training specifically for Leadville. It's not only is it a hard event, everyone you're racing against is really high level as well, whether they're 30 years old or 60 years old.
Yeah.
We did our heat training tip. Gosh, that was probably 5-6 weeks ago. Can you tell us now that you're on the other side of that? What did you learn from your heat training, and what would you tell athletes about using heat training for preparation next year?
Yeah, it works. I will absolutely do it again next year. I used the core body temperature sensor, and I was able to get my heat acclimation. They rank you on a percentage, 0 to 100% heat acclimated. And I was able to get that at peak up to 95% acclimated to the heat a couple of weeks out from Leadville as well. So I was able to, and I was doing all of this heat acclimation before I did kind of additional altitude acclimation of going from Boulder altitude 5,300 feet up to Leadville. So yeah, and without having tangible lab test numbers, which yeah, maybe we can get some of those. I've never felt so good at altitude before. Nice. You know, I felt great. I felt comfortable in the couple of weeks prior to the race at 10 to 12,000 feet. And when I would come home to down here front range 5,000 feet, I would be like, man, I feel like I'm at sea level right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why so many athletes that want to perform at a high level make a decision to move to altitude, not just like acclimate it for a race, but to actually live there. And I think you're living, breathing proof of that with just what you said. I never felt better at altitude.
Yeah. And I think it offers you a really unique strategy with the acclimation as well, because a lot of athletes, like a lot of pros specifically, will just go live in Leadville for a month before the race. However, your training quality suffers because of that. You're reducing your power, on average by 10%, if not more, when you go up there. Yeah. So I would kind of use that to my advantage, being able to spend time back and forth between Leadville and home. So I would do like my longer, more aerobic zone 2 tempo sweet spot up at altitude. And then I would come down here to Boulder and rev it up a little bit more and do like my quality threshold sessions down here.
I like that strategy a lot. Yeah. And I think you and I last week were talking about adding blood work, lab test data in terms of hematocrit, hemoglobin, ferritin, the works to really measure before and after the effectiveness of the heat and the altitude training.
The last lab values that I have are from November of last year when I had just moved to Colorado within 4 to 6 weeks. It wouldn't represent a great baseline. We might be able to backwards engineer it in a bit that like, hey, like, okay, within the next week or two, like go get those values tested and then like later see. But yeah, that's definitely something that I would like to kind of look into, just to get some numbers on it rather than just like, oh, I feel great at altitude.
I would say you got about 7 to 10 days to get a blood test and capture the altitude acclimation. Then you would want to test maybe in 4 to 5 months, like a baseline, and then get another measurement next June, and then obviously one before the race. Sounds like a lot, but if you're doing all this altitude training, and this is not just for you, this is for everyone, you want to measure if it's working or not just, I think it's working.
We had kind of talked about it in our heat acclimation videos, I think, but it's really important because you want to make sure that you're iron and ferritin levels are good before you go into these types of training. And I knew that my levels were good even, before being like fully acclimated to altitude and living in Colorado. So I already had that assurance. But that's really important to make sure that you're responding and recovering well for your training.
A lot of times nutritional interventions are required to stock up on your iron so that when your body is like, let's build some red blood cells, they have the iron ready to do so. Yeah. In terms of nutrition, so you did 5,230 kilojoules of work. That's 5 Chipotle burritos, everyone. And did you eat that much during the race, Elliot?
Not that much, but I do think I did a pretty good job of, despite the issues, I think I did a pretty good job of keeping the intake relatively okay. The strategy was plus or minus 90 grams an hour. And the way that I was building that was never second mix in the bottles, 60 grams of carbs per bottle, and then 30-gram gels over the duration of the race. I think I did 8 or 9 gels in total, and those were kind of strategically placed out on course. If we rewind all the way back to the Leadville fueling video from 2 months ago, those are the places that I was fueling. And those are very strategically placed based on the energy demands and output of the course. And also like, where is it easy to eat a gel on course? Can't really eat a gel going down Columbine. So probably not going to have one there.
Yeah. So 270 grams of carbohydrate from gels and then 330 grams of carbohydrate from your never second drink mix. So
Yep.
600 grams total. And that comes out to be
so 6.5 hour finish with 600 grams is about 92 grams per hour. I was a little over that, so probably 85 grams an hour, maybe.
85 grams of carbohydrate per hour.
Yeah.
That's great. Would you do more or less? Keep it the same?
Yeah, I really need to do a little bit of a deep dive into the fueling strategy. Just with the issues, there are things that I need to revisit, I think. Like,
Yeah.
I think the fueling rate was good, but I think maybe we need to make some adjustments in the composition of that fueling in the first couple of hours, especially if it's cold. That is an issue that I have had before at races in cold temperatures. So yeah, I think that's where we need to kind of look a little bit deeper next year.
All good lessons
Yeah.
to apply for the next year. Should you do it? Yes.
Right.
We won't put you on the spot if you're
Yeah.
going to do it. Well, thanks so much for sharing your experience and with all the listeners and the viewers. Like I said, I think you really walked the walk for the athletes you coach, which is awesome. We're super proud of you. It's a really good result. And yeah, I know it's Sunday nights. We'll let you go and get some rest, and we'll see you and stand up tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks.
So there you have it. 6 hours and 52 minutes of pure grit, digging deep and expert preparation. Elliot didn't just survive Leadville, he mastered it. From months of structured training and heat adaptation to staying disciplined with fueling and pacing at altitude, every decision added up to that big gold buckle in a 7-hour race. And as he said it himself, if you want to tackle Leadville and do your best, you really need to start thinking about it right now. Leadville is a race that deserves 365 days of your attention. And remember, Elliot did all of this working a full-time job coaching FasCat athletes, and that means his approach wasn't just for athletes with unlimited time. It's a blueprint that works for busy athletes who still want to perform at the highest level. If you're thinking about taking on Leadville next year, whether you want to earn your first buckle or shave hours off your time, or maybe you want to break the 7-hour barrier, you can work directly with Elliot. He's been there, he's done it, and he knows exactly how to get you ready for the course, the altitude, the mental grind, everything you need to do to put in a good time. We'll put the link below to get started with Elliot. Reach out to us. You can leave a comment here. It all begins with filling out our new athlete questionnaire. From there, we'll get you on a phone conversation with Elliot. And not only will Elliot listen to you to understand your life, your goals, your challenges, but he'll also do a deep dive review of your historical training data just like we covered here in this training tip, including your Leadville race file if you have raced it before, or maybe you've done another ultra long distance mountain bike race, and he will pinpoint exactly where you can improve for next year and beyond. We're data driven over here, and that's what you'll get. So let us know if you have any coaching questions in the comments. And in the meantime, hit that like button and subscribe for more power analysis and training tips. And let's keep making you faster. Thanks so much for watching. It's an honor and a privilege that you do. I will see you next time.